Hey, what's up, everybody? Frederick Poag here. Something's got me to thinking about this attack on Obama from Tulsi Gabbard. And it's more than just a distraction from the Epstein files. What if Tulsi Gabbard's attack on Obama is really just an admission of Trump's own guilt? Stick with me on this one. A little less than a week ago, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, made explosive allegations that high-ranking Obama officials orchestrated, quote, a treasonous conspiracy, unquote, to fabricate Russian election interference in the 2016 presidential election. Of course, to follow this narrative, we must suspend disbelief and ignore the fact that Donald Trump was actually president and in charge of the federal government from 2016 to 2020. With control of the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the entire national security apparatus. If such a vast conspiracy existed, it apparently evaded detection for 4 years under his leadership, which would suggest either catastrophic incompetence or, more likely, it was made up to distract from the Epstein files. But it also may be an attempt to distract from something else, such as the renewed attention surrounding the Epstein files and the powerful individuals they implicate. But the timing's not a coincidence. Regardless of the validity of Tulsi Gabbard's claims, the message landed with a thunder inside the MAGA universe. Conservative media outlets frame the story as a long overdue vindication. Evidence that Trump has been hunted from day one. Trump himself wasted no time posting AI-generated videos of Barack Obama being arrested in the Oval Office to the soundtrack of the Village People's YMCA. A pretty surreal moment that probably deserves its own chapter in a future history book. But what if this isn't just a distraction from Epstein? If you step back and you really look at the structure of Tulsi Gabbard's allegation and its abstract timeline, starts to feel eerily familiar. Not just in its themes of betrayal and shadow conspiracies, but in its mechanisms. In psychology, this is called psychological projection. In more direct terms, for Trump especially, every accusation is a confession. Everything Tulsi Gabbard claims Obama officials did to Trump, twisting intelligence, leaking classified material, feeding media narratives, manipulating public trust. That didn't happen in 2016. But something like it did happen between 2020 and 2024. And it wasn't directed at Trump. It was directed by Trump. That sabotage by Donald Trump started before the president even left office in 2020. In the final weeks of his term, Trump used the tools of government to undermine the outcome of the election and cast doubt on Biden's legitimacy. Intelligence briefings were delayed. Officials pressured to support baseless claims of fraud. Declassified documents were released not for transparency, but to feed conspiracy theories. At the Department of Homeland Security, intelligence about Russian interference and domestic extremism was withheld because it didn't fit Trump's preferred narrative. A senior official at the Department of Homeland Security, Brian Murphy, later revealed that the reports were altered under direct political pressure from the White House. The intention was clear: weaken Joe Biden before he could even step foot into the Oval Office. And this pressure began while Trump was still in office, even before the events that would unfold on January 6th. At the Department of Justice, as late as December 2020, senior officials were pressured to support election fraud claims. When they refused, many were pushed out or isolated. Inside the intelligence community, reports contradicting Trump's narrative were stalled or sanitized. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence delayed assessments about Russian interference and downplayed the threats of domestic extremism, all before January 6th. At DHS, Murphy said he was told to shift the focus from white nationalism, which the FBI identified years earlier as the biggest threat that we faced in America, but that he was to look at China and Iran, even when the data didn't support it. No one needed to coordinate that. Trump loyalists knew what they needed to do. After Biden took office, the sabotage didn't stop. It just moved deeper into the system. Many of Trump's appointees stayed in place. Some quietly shifted into permanent civil service roles. Others had always been there. They were longtime loyalists who knew how to slow things down from the inside. They didn't need instructions because they had conviction. And that belief wasn't just political. They turned it into operational. By December of 2020, nearly 80% of Republican voters believed the election was rigged. That belief held firm well into 2024. While federal employees aren't supposed to be political, even the most conservative estimates suggest that at least 25% of the federal workforce identifies as Republican. That means a minimum of 600,000 people who were working in government under Biden believed he didn't belong there. Most weren't operatives. But belief drives behavior. It influences decisions, shapes what gets delayed, and informs what gets leaked. Even after Biden was inaugurated, there were people inside the federal government actively working to undermine him. Intelligence was framed to raise doubts. Briefings were delayed or they were stripped out of context. Legal interpretations were narrowed to slow policy, and classified information was selectively leaked to partisan media outlets. It all looked bureaucratic on the surface, but it was anything but, and it damn sure wasn't neutral. If you look at it now, Tulsi Gabbard's accusations read like a confession when you change the names. She's describing the very playbook her side has already used to great effect. This conspiracy about Obama, it wasn't just imagined. It was inverted from something they'd already done. This isn't about accountability. Not from Trump's side. This is a distraction. So while the public looks backward, the real story is still in those Epstein files, which they are delaying to release. And while Tulsi Gabbard has tried to hide the Epstein scandal on behalf of her boss, she has, in fact, admitted to an equally large conspiracy. Not one imagined under Obama, but executed by Trump's allies in the final days of his term in 2020 and continued by loyalists embedded in the government. Their tools were suppressed reports, altered intelligence, delayed briefings, and targeted leaks, likely in coordination with groups like the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, and others. We're not talking about speculation. We're talking about strategy. We're not, at this point, this projection is a confession. And it would lead up to January 6th and then continue on all the way to the 2024 election and what we now call the big lie. There was absolutely a plot inside the federal government to weaken the president from within. It's just, it isn't about what Trump and what it's done to Trump. It is really a story about what Trump and his people, still in place, still committed, and still working the levers of power, did to undermine the will of the American people. That's what we're really talking about. So if you want a conspiracy to look into, that's where we need to start. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Keep the faith, defend democracy, and I'll see you later.